Finding a place to belong is everything. It's where you can make a difference, where you're heard, where you have a team that supports you, and the benefits you deserve. At Avera, you can find that place. You belong at Avera. Apply today. Avera.org/careers.
Sioux Falls is home to many things: locally owned businesses, an unmatched work ethic, and a community of leaders dedicated to growth and innovation. Powered by over 300 investors, Forward Sioux Falls is an advancement program aimed at enhancing the Sioux Falls economy. 2026 initiatives are well underway, focusing on talent retention, business attraction, and quality of place enhancement. Look to the future with Forward Sioux Falls.
Do you want to shape and lead the future? Walk with us.
It's the team, the space, and the place that's gonna get you where you wanna be. It's USD.
The Greater Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce didn't start our thriving business community. That was done by individuals driven to create their dreams.
The Chamber does a lot with advocacy for businesses.
The Chamber is always looking to connect other people to your business.
So we joined right away, and we've been a member ever since.
The Greater Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce, we're standing at your side when nothing's gonna stand in your way.
What's affordable to her might not be for him. Our means may be different, but our need for energy is the same. And keeping the price for that energy as low as possible is exactly what we strive to do. It's what we've always done. Investments made 10 years ago have kept prices nearly unchanged. Investments made today will help keep prices predictable for the future, with energy that's cleaner, reliable, and affordable for all. An energy future that's American-made. Mid-American. Obsessively, relentlessly at your service.
In a world where life moves quickly and education comes in many forms, we believe there is still value in personal relationships, affordable, quality academics, and a supportive, Christ-centered environment. As the University of Sioux Falls looks to the future, we embrace what makes us different. If you're looking for a transformational experience, there is a difference. And that difference is here.
Here, we believe in doing good, even in small ways, in ways nobody sees and only a few notice. We do good in all the details, through all the difficulties. We do good with every appointment, every conversation, every treatment. We do good for every person, because no matter what we do here, we're making a difference, and it takes all of us to change somebody's life. Now think of all the good you could do if you join us.
There's something special about the people of Sioux Falls. It's home to go-getters, cultivators, and doers. Sioux Falls is a place where you can pursue your life and your purpose. You can slow down with your family or pick up the pace of your professional growth. It's that hard work, small town feel, close to the land, know your neighbor, endless possibilities that bring people here. Find out for yourself what a difference this state can make. Visit SiouxFalls.com/work, where over 40 of Sioux Falls' top businesses are hiring right now for people like you.
The #1 city for best small places for business and careers according to Forbes magazine, Sioux Falls.
Work Sioux Falls.
ZipRecruiter's #3 hottest job market, Sioux Falls.
Work Sioux Falls.
Over 40 businesses are hiring right now.
Work Sioux Falls.
That's why the Sioux Falls Development Foundation created Work Sioux Falls, a local resource that gives job seekers an inside track to jobs that are open right now.
Work Sioux Falls.
See the difference a local company can make in your career. Visit SiouxFalls.com/work.
It's not just the natural beauty, the outdoor playground, or the top-rated quality of life that puts our state on the map. Sioux Falls is also home to some of the most innovative and cutting-edge healthcare businesses in the country that attract worldwide pioneers in healthcare. Visit SiouxFalls.com/work to browse healthcare positions on all levels, from RNs to scientists, to business development and HR, among many others. Come find out why a healthcare career in Sioux Falls is your next move. Visit SiouxFalls.com/work to find your perfect fit. If you're ready to grow your career with the right company, Sioux Falls is the place to be. Sioux Falls is home to some of the fastest growing manufacturing, healthcare, and financial institutions that have their footprint all over the world. Be a part of something special, something growing, something that makes your short and long-term career goals possible. Sioux Falls businesses need you. Visit SiouxFalls.com/work to learn more about over 45 businesses hiring right now. That's SiouxFalls.com/work.
All right, Lindsay, it's great talking to you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll see you Saturday. Okay, bye. All right, Maya, what should we do next? I know.
Well, hello. If I can get everybody seated, we are going to start the closing session. So my name is Denise Gazzetta. I am beyond thrilled that you guys are all sharing not only your morning and your afternoon, but you're staying for this closing session, which is very, very dear to my heart. I'd like to first begin by just echoing Carla Santi's comments earlier today about how we're embracing technology. Our closing session today is dedicated to engaging conversation on how AI is helping to address employee shortages globally and how employee expectations for work and their preferences, like it or not, are key to managing workforce staffing and provide opportunities for companies to do what they do best, and that is focus back on your core of how and what you do. It is an honor and a pleasure to introduce the moderator and the panelists for this closing session. We have Laura Mitchell from Lawrence and Schiller. We have Senator Mike Rounds appearing virtually today. We also have Erica DeBoer of Stanford Health. We have Dr. Jose Marie Griffiths from Dakota State University. We have Dean Neil Fulton from the law school at University of South Dakota, and we have Jeremy Pankratz from Meta, as well as we have Dr. Jessica Messon-Smith from USD. Let's give them a big round of applause. I'm also going to, at this point, I'm going to turn things over just briefly to Laura, and she's going to take things from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Denise. Welcome to the closing session of our WIN Workforce Summit today. We are live from Sioux Falls using Handshake, Facebook, and YouTube to connect people virtually to all things workforce, including our closing session. So we are going to be embarking on a journey with generative AI, unveiling its indispensable role. And I had the privilege of speaking with Senator Rounds earlier. He's not able to be here in person, so I want to kick things off today with a little video on the conversation that he and I had about a week ago. So with that, Senator Rounds. Thanks, Laura. Good to see you today.
Oh, gee, you got too much of your dad in you.
Guilty. Thank you, Senator, for joining us today at the Sioux Falls Development Foundation's WIN in Workforce Summit. So we are excited to close out today's session with a discussion on artificial intelligence. And you have a lot of experience in this area. You are sit on the Select Committee for Intelligence, and as the ranking member of the Senate Armed Services Committee's Subcommittee on Cybersecurity, you focus on making sure the U.S. is equipped to defend against cyber attacks. And one of the tools in our toolbox to ensure this is artificial intelligence. And additionally, in that area of focus, you've led alongside 3 of your colleagues at the Senate's AI Working Group to provide bipartisan education sessions for all members of the Senate and their staff. So you've been doing a lot of work in this area.
And you've done your homework.
I have, yes. Your team does a great job on your website and making sure that we're all informed. So let's start there and tell me a little bit about the work that you've been doing in the Senate these past years and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, look, first of all, artificial intelligence is here and it's not going away. And it will impact every part of our lives. So at the federal level, there are certain things that we've got to be aware of. Part of it is that if it's not going to go away, we want to make sure that it is developed in the United States and not someplace else. Part of the reason for that is because we want the economic benefit of it. We want the quality of life benefits from it. We also need the national defense capabilities that it provides. And we know that if it develops someplace else, then the social mores and the standards that the other country has will be incorporated into the standards that are developed into the AI systems. Just as an example, China is working really hard to catch up with us, and they're not very far behind us in the development of generative AI. But what they want to use artificial intelligence for is to create and to maintain the police state. We don't want that. We don't want that built into artificial intelligence. That's not the way that we want to have it happen. If you live in China today, they know when you leave your apartment. They know which streets you walk down. They know what transportation systems you take. They know whether or not you've applied to go to a concert, as an example. They know whether or not you walk on a red light or not. They have a social test in which, if you are a good government person for them, you might get tickets to a concert. On the other hand, if perhaps you're not paying a bill on time, or perhaps if you're looking at information that they consider to be inappropriate, then they punish you. But they keep track of you. They can identify you not just based on your face, but on the way that you walk. And so those are the types of things that we don't want to see built into artificial intelligence programs for the rest of the world. If China wants to do it, fine, but we don't want that to be the social more which is acceptable. So that's the first thing. The other piece on this is economic development-wise, look, we're seeing a renaissance in terms of what AI can do for the economy. The vast majority of activity when it comes to creating things in the future will have some segment of AI directly involved in it. Transportation, as an example. But also the development, the manufacturing of systems out there, and providing services as well. All will have segments or parts of artificial intelligence built into them. When it comes to information and information sharing, the same thing. AI will help to generate information that people will rely on. They're gonna expect that when they open up one of their applications in the phone, it goes to a place where they wanted it to go and where they've done it in the past, and they just want it to happen for them. AI will see that happen for them. On the other side, though, AI will be used to try to manipulate people. And if it's illegal to manipulate people today, it will be illegal to use AI to manipulate people. But it's not just the use of AI that would be illegal, it's the original action if it was illegal. So those are some of the things that we talk about. And in the meantime, our weapon systems today, defending our ships in the Red Sea, we use AI to do that. When the Houthis attack our ships, when they attack shipping, when they attack Israel, the way that we monitor, we maintain, we see their drones, we see their ballistic missiles and so forth, you couldn't shoot them down in the 10 to 15 seconds if you didn't use some of the most advanced computer systems in the world to be able to do that. Those are the things that we're working on today.
Yeah, thank you for that. As you take that work that you've been doing and translate that into regulation or legislation, I know in the past you've presented to our South Dakota Joint Senate and House Representatives group this past summer and talked about how there wouldn't be a blanket mega bill related to artificial intelligence, but instead it would be in every committee that is addressed. So talk a little bit about the regulation that might be coming down in a few of those scenarios, or how you're approaching policy.
Yeah, we're seeing that right now. We have a National Defense Authorization Act, which we're working through the House and the Senate as we speak. Incorporated into that are multiple areas in which artificial intelligence will be developed. I'll just say this, and we normally don't talk about what's in the bill, but I can tell you that one area, when it comes to actually creating our machine shops and our shipbuilding facilities, we're going to direct them to incorporate artificial intelligence into those systems in the near future. The reason? We can't afford to build ships and we can't afford to build airplanes unless we find new technologies in which to do it. But AI can help us do that. That's included in the bill today. When you talk about financial services, I've got legislation right now in which I want them to have a kind of what we call it a sandbox, where they know where the different organizations can go and test their artificial intelligence and have regulatory oversight over how they test the delivery of different products, knowing that they can do it in a trusted environment. When you talk about healthcare, I want to see databases that are as big as possible and as accurate as possible, so that when you use a computer system to go through and to delve out what's working and what's not, that those databases are so big and so accurate that we can actually develop new types of products, new types of pharmaceuticals based upon the use of those databases. We've got lots of little databases, but how do you put together a deal where they share the information in those databases with a central location, but they still protect the privacy of the individuals that are sharing that data with us. And then what if you actually find a cure, or you find someone has an illness and you find it using artificial intelligence in the huge database? How do you quietly go back to the individual with permission and say, we did look at your information and we think you may have a problem that we can help you solve? How do you do that? Those are the types of things that we're working on right now.
Wow, that's incredible. You know, as we sit in front of all these businesses here today and their staff, I'm sure a lot of them struggle with how to bring this to life, how to implement within their businesses. So how can, you know, policymakers at the federal, state, or local level collaborate alongside industry leaders to create guidelines and ensure the responsible use of AI? You talked a little bit about privacy and access to data and that sort of thing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. There is significant expertise with regard to technology and making decisions really, really fast that all different industries have. We want to make sure that we take that into account when we start talking about additional legislation that might be necessary because of the speed in which decisions could be made using artificial intelligence. We want to make sure that the data is accurate. We want to make sure that it is, you know, not invading privacy without telling people that. But for businesses that are out there, the chances are really good that regardless of if they're in a technology business or in a financial services business, the chances are they're already using some form, even in a limited basis, that they're using AI today. We want to make sure that we don't chase that AI development overseas by restricting or slowing down or making the reports coming from the use of that onerous to them. That's the first piece. So we want to do no harm to the development.
Sure.
The second piece is we want to make sure that people understand the guidelines and the expectations that if something that occurs is illegal today, simply incorporating or using AI as a development system does not make it legal tomorrow.
Right.
You still have the right and the wrong, and that's got to be incorporated into the development of AI. You also need to be able to allow the folks that are here to, based upon their expertise, to develop AI in ways that we haven't imagined yet. And if we don't do it here, then they're going to do it someplace else. And what we want to make sure is that that development occurs here in the United States. An area that I think we're always going to struggle with is to have the expertise at the federal or the state level to really do a good job of regulating AI unless we invite the industries themselves into the sandbox, so to speak, to help us, to be able to tell us what they see happening and for us to be able to glean information from them. We had a group of, we had like 9 different educational seminars that we put together for members of the Senate and their staff. What we found when we did that was we brought in all segments of AI, from big companies to little companies. They were not, there was not a single commonality among them that said it's us versus them.
Sure.
It was the big saying, look, we need to develop quickly. The smaller guys saying, wait a minute, you can't take over and get all the money out of this thing here and run us off. So, and at the same time, the big guys are saying, yeah, but you little guys, if all of the restrictions are on the big guys, you little guys are going to run over the top of us because you can move so quickly.
Sure.
And so what we had was them talking back and forth between themselves that we learned from.
Right.
And that's the reason why we did these separate 9 deals, was to bring them in and let them talk in front of us, and we could learn the different areas that were sensitive to them. I think that makes for better legislation. Now, we did it with members of the Senate there, but just as importantly, staff members were there as well. And the Senate is staff-driven. That expertise will stay with those Senate staff members for years to come. And so it helps us to not be afraid to actually delve into what is good legislation with regard to the development of artificial intelligence here in the United States.
Yeah, wow, that's great. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about international cooperation and what role you might see in regulating generative AI technologies as it relates to our international area.
Yeah, look, as we said to begin with, artificial intelligence is here and it's not going to go away. China is going to develop it. We're going to do everything we can to slow down their development because we think they'll do it for the wrong reasons. We also think that they are an adversary, not a competitor with regard to national defense. Russia is the same thing. Iran and North Korea are the same thing. We want to make sure that our allies, though, have the capabilities to develop artificial intelligence like we do. And so we talk with, first of all, the group which we call the Five Eyes, which is the United States, Canada, Great Britain, New Zealand, and Australia. They are our most trusted allies. But we have other allies as well, including Israel, and including UAE. When you start talking about those types of countries, they want to develop this as well. We want to be part of a relationship building team that helps them develop, but also makes sure that the development and the training and the sharing occurs between us and those countries rather than them and Russia or China. So it's a case of where we've got to have the State Department directly involved, but we've also got to have, in many cases, the Department of Defense also involved. And we have intel connections with all of those countries. We want to make sure that there is a sense of confidence and comfort that we have a lot of the same understandings as those countries, do as well. So it's a matter of reinforcing the relationship that we want with our allies, our friends in regions that some cases are very, very dangerous.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. We'll wrap up today by just asking an open-ended question. If there's anything else you'd like to share with this group today and related to AI or the work that you're doing.
Yeah, look, I'll start it out again and say this. Artificial intelligence is here to stay. We want our universities to be directly involved. You're going to hear from DSU. You're going to hear what they're working on. They are one of perhaps 4 entities in the entire country that have the capabilities to do really great work with regard to cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. We want that to incorporate along with our other universities as well. SDSU working on ag information. School of Mines and Technology and Metallurgy and so forth is huge. When it comes to healthcare, the University of South Dakota and our School of Medicine have got to be directly involved in utilizing artificial intelligence. What does it mean for people here in the United States? If we develop this correctly and we allow artificial intelligence to be incorporated into healthcare as an example, the quality of life goes up for people here. And I've shared this before, but I'm going to do it again because I think it's so important. The technologies are developing rapidly. I lost Jean in November of 2021. But in June of 2021, we went to Mayo Clinic. Like I said, I've told this story before, but to me it is so important to recognize how quickly this is happening. She had tumors in her brain that were sarcoma. I thought the end was right there when we got there. But because of technology that had been developed within a 2-year period of time, the physicians at Mayo could literally take out those cancerous tumors, completely eliminate them, and not hurt the rest of her brain. That gave us 6 more months with her. That type of technology can be incorporated if we do this correctly to where I really do believe that we can cure the vast majority of cancers within the next 5 years.
Wow.
And that's just not me talking. That's folks that have been actively involved in national defense through the Security Council, looking at how capable AI is if we properly fund it and incentivize it to happen here in the United States. So for me, it's not just a matter of national defense, and it's not just a matter of business as usual. In this case, it is improving the quality of life for millions of Americans in a very short period of time. But we've got to stay focused on it, and we've got to continue to push the development and the opportunity for our young people to grow and prosper because of AI right here in South Dakota.
Wow, that would be incredible.
I think so, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen. We've got the right people in the right places. But we've got to stay focused on it, and we've got to get the confidence of the people in South Dakota and the people in the United States to know that while there is threats around artificial intelligence, the opportunities to do good far outweighs the risks that we would take.
Well, I hope this conversation today is a step in the right direction and can help invigorate the crowd here today and others as the message is spread further. So thank you for being our cheerleader in artificial intelligence at the federal level and for South Dakota. And thank you again for your time today. Let's everybody give Senator Rounds a round of applause. And thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Bye. It's not every day we get to hear it straight from Senator Rounds, and as you can tell, he's very passionate about artificial intelligence and has done a lot of homework in that area for South Dakota, so it's really great to have him advocating on our behalf. We're going to start with a little bit of foundational knowledge as we get to know our panelists today, and I'm going to start with President Griffiths from Dakota State. Tell us a little bit, first of all, what is generative AI? You know, lay it down in layman's terms for those of us who don't work in it every day like you or the other panelists may appear. And also talk to us a little bit around the ethical concerns using it within the workforce.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, AI has been around for a long time, and it's really the use of computing and other technologies to try and mimic human behavior and the sort of way the brain behaves, for example. Generative AI is a little bit different from standard AI, or what we would call classical AI, in the sense that it actually generates new content. And if you asked a generative AI question, and it had some knowledge of you and how you work, and I asked the same question, we'd be quite likely to have different answers. And if each of us asked on a different day, we would probably get different answers. So generative AI is generating new content that's presenting to you each time. It's that we are generative beings as humans, unless you memorize certain facts. If you ask people their opinion on something one day and you ask it again on another day, you might well get a somewhat different answer, and that's what it means to be generative, basically.
Great.
You asked me about the ethical considerations. There were quite a few. I know some people get very nervous when they think about artificial intelligence and how it might be used. We've just heard Senator Rounds talking about some environments where it can be used in ways we wouldn't want to. So I've got 6 of them. One is transparency. I will say, actually, if you're using AI in a product or a service, it would be a good idea just to let people know this is brought to you by a generative AI content, so people at least know that at the beginning. You might not know what to do beyond that, but at least you've informed them. The second area of concern is bias. And generative AI works on by being trained on a lot of data. Data is a very critical resource in this new environment. But you can inadvertently bias the results that the AI gives you if you don't give it the right kinds of data to train on. So a good example would be Indeed. Cisco wanted to review resumes and select resumes using an AI application a few years ago. And they trained it on the model of people they already had working at Cisco. Well, actually, predominantly they were young males. And so no females' resumes would pass through the filter. So then they tried to fix it, and they couldn't. They had to scrap the whole thing and start again. So bias is a concern. Privacy, we've heard from Senator Rounds, a key concern. And I say privacy and security are tied together. They're two sides of the same coin. If you're protecting the data and protecting the AI application, then you're preserving privacy to some extent as well. Number 4 is misleading information or disinformation that's deliberately incorrect, inappropriate propaganda and other kinds of wrong information. We should be concerned about that. Accountability. Do we have an accountability mechanism for those people who are putting out AI products and services, so that if you have a question, you're not quite sure how it works, is there some kind of group that you can get to who would review that and say, yes, this should be adjusted? And the last one is autonomy. We're working towards, and we already have, autonomous artificial intelligence systems that are not necessarily controlled by a human in what we call in the loop, and that gets to a whole different level of concern. But those are some of the every one of those causes questions in how we design AI, how we decide to use it, and how we decide to tell the user community what it's doing.
Thank you. I'm going to switch gears and talk to you, Dr. Messersmith, a little bit. You're the Associate Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at USD. Yes, correct?
Yes,
okay.
correct.
Can you talk a little bit about how it's being integrated into the programming at USD to prepare our workforce?
Absolutely. So I think it starts at the core of the USD mission. So at the core of education at USD is this concept of liberal arts, right? And that's a really ill-defined term for most. But how I would describe liberal arts is it's an education that's teaching that person learning how to critically think, how to problem solve, how to work in a team, how to have that collaboration, how to ask meaningful questions in the right way to get the answers that they're seeking, right? And I always describe obtaining a liberal arts education as a way to future-proof your career, right? It allows you to develop the skills that are going to allow you to adapt to whatever that future landscape is. And AI right now, generative AI, is that future landscape. So as we're approaching education and teaching around generative AI, we're really coming at it through that liberal arts lens of being able to help our students across disciplines, from computer science, where we're teaching students how to actually write the code for the AI, to our humanities professions and our business school and our med school, where we're teaching students how to be users, how to be consumers of that AI. For most of you out here in the audience, you're not going to be writing the code that is producing that AI output. You're going to be users of that. And so we really have to be central on making sure that we're producing students that have data and AI literacy, because they are the individuals who are going to be coming out in that workforce as new graduates that you're probably going to be looking to say, hey, this new tool exists that computer science created for us. How can we use that in our business to benefit what we are trying to do? And that person with that liberal arts education is going to be able to answer those questions of saying, okay, let's ask a question to figure out what this AI is doing. Let's ask the questions to figure out what type of data it's looking for. Let's ask the questions to make sure that this AI is in line with our mission and values as a company, as a business, and helping you figure out how to implement that in your everyday life.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I heard prompt engineer is like a new skill people are
Yes,
learning these days.
absolutely.
How to write good questions for
Mhm.
AI. I
Yes.
could probably use a little of that training. Neil Fulton, you are the Dean of the School of Law at USD, and I know you're probably training your future lawyers on how to do research really well using AI, but tell us a little bit about how you're integrating that in the programming there and what you're seeing from the legal side of things.
Well, lawyers are notoriously strong technological adopters. That was funnier than the audience gave it credit for. You know, for us, we're doing a few things. One of them is the very practical, figuring out how you use AI in your profession. For us, a lot of legal research, document review, drafting, that's really contextual, and there are some things that are consistent, I think, in a lot of industries that's good, and some things that are not so good. And we do that very practically with our law students. And I think the other thing that we're really trying to think about, and it was just really gratifying to hear Senator Rounds talk about this, the technicians are thinking about what we can do as lawyers, and I think over at Arts and Sciences and the philosophy department and other places, we're thinking about what we should do and what we do to strike the balance of regulation. And so, you know, hearing Senator Rounds talk about the regulatory process, the reality, folks, is the technicians will go faster than we possibly can. They will go faster than the philosophers can, faster than the lawyers can, faster than the politicians can. And so one of the things that we are thinking about is how we talk to our law students about the administrative process, the regulatory process, the legislative process, to evaluate these things, strike the balance of facilitating innovation, like Senator Rounds is talking about with the sandbox, because we don't want to regulate ourselves out of innovation, but we also don't want to innovate ourselves into Skynet. That too is funnier than people gave it credit for. If not, you need to go home and watch The Terminator. Because I think that's really a critical conversation that, as Jess notes, the liberal arts and the law will be involved in, because the technology is important, but the regulation and the fitting of that to our human existence is also important.
Yeah, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about healthcare. Erica DeBoer is the Chief Nursing Officer for Sanford Health. Thank you for being here. Will you tell us a little bit about just the implementation of AI in healthcare and how that intersection of your employees or your nurses or healthcare professionals intersects with patient care?
So I think for many of you, we've been living with AI for a long time. We actually spent a lot of time talking about it as augmented intelligence instead of artificial intelligence because guess what? There's a healthy fear that goes along with AI, understanding how that's going to impact patient care, but also how to help use that data, which data is a huge asset that we have to protect and pay attention to. We spend a lot of time talking about how can we embed it into the electronic medical record because not just about the electronic medical record, but how can it utilize that massive database of information so it can help the healthcare teams actually inform care. Additionally, predictive analytics has been something we've been spending a lot of time on. When we say predictive analytics, it again uses some of the intelligence that are in the electronic medical record to comb the chart, to serve up information about risk, about different tools that maybe are going to help us care for our patients. As it relates to our employee workforce, I always say the coined phrase of how do we get rid of stupid stuff or gross. It's important for us to leverage some of the technology that we have to make sure that we're not doing some of those tasks as healthcare professionals, but we utilize some of the tools out there to help us actually do that, which could be natural language processing and some of those pieces to help us actually speed up that work so that we have more access for all the patients that need our care.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Jeremy, on to you. You are the Public Policy Manager for the Northwest region at Meta, and I'm sure you deal with AI on a day-to-day basis, being with, anybody out there have a Facebook or Instagram Threads account, right? Yep, so yeah, Jeremy represents Meta, the parent company. Can you tell us a little bit about how you collaborate with other corporations to implement best practices and ethical usage of AI? I know you've talked about Meta being an AI company by default and keeping an eye on regulation. And can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I did before showing up here was I did ask Meta AI to summarize and create talking points based off of Senator Round's testimony at the AI hearing a couple of weeks ago. And now, unfortunately, since he's spoke before you, my talking points are less relevant. But in terms of what we do at Meta for communicating and working with other companies is we do try and have a kind of an open source concept where we work with other companies, governmental entities, societal organizations to have discussions about how to properly implement, create, and generate artificial intelligence programs. One of the things that we've worked with is the PAI, the Partnership for Artificial Intelligence, and we helped work with them in drafting the guidelines for ethical use of generative AI. So it's something that we definitely keep in mind when we utilize the systems both internally and what we export and provide externally for folks to use.
You talked a little bit about partnerships. I'm going to ask my university friends up here if you can share a little bit about any partnerships you've had with industry leaders throughout the work you're doing at Dakota State and USC. I'll start with you, President Griffiths.
Yeah, we have a number of partnerships in AI. We had a partnership with Sterling Computers down in Sioux City, North Sioux City, I should say. They were working on avatars and chatbots, and we had a group of students guided by a couple of faculty working on empathy, how to make these chatbots and avatars seem a lot more human than they can. And that was fun. It was interesting to watch how the students dressed somebody who was going to interact with students and what kind of language they used to interact with them. That was one partnership. We've had a long-standing partnership with Artificial Intelligence Sweden, and through them we have an industrial immersion program for graduate students. So every year, this year 12 of our graduate students went over to Sweden, and 12 graduate students from within Sweden. They spend 4 weeks in Gothenburg working on projects that come from industry, and then they come to Madison, South Dakota, and spend 4 weeks there. They're doing projects for Volvo in terms of autonomous vehicles and interaction with various devices that have to communicate with autonomous vehicles like traffic lights and things of that kind. They're working with the Royal Navy, the Swedish Royal Navy, on looking at ship patterns and trying to detect anomalies in the way ships are maneuvering to see if they can identify people that are smuggling and things of that kind. They're also working with Case New Holland, which is one of the big agricultural vehicle producers, working on a combination of artificial intelligence to help secure those systems by taking care of some of the routine tasks of cybersecurity, allowing the human cybersecurity specialists to focus on the higher level tasks. But it's sort of interesting as I say that, it's easy to say, if you're dealing with a lot of text, for example, we can use AI very conveniently at that end of the scale. But then we also have the massive scale where we really, at this point, we know of problems, but we really can't contemplate how to solve it with enough people power. So that power will be available with the AI. So you've got sort of both ends of the spectrum that are both growing towards the same time.
There are probably too many to name, so I'll try to highlight some. We have students in our computer science program who have done internships with Meta and Google and those big names that you would expect. We also have computer science students who are doing internships with local companies, working on cryptocurrency, market modeling to be able to maximize returns from investors. We also have partnerships with the public sector. Actually, thanks to Senator Rounds, we recently secured funding from the Department of Education to develop the Biomedical Computational Collaborative. That's a collaborative program between the USD School of Medicine, the University of South Dakota, and South Dakota School of Mines and Technology to develop an educational program to be able to talk about data and computation in a way that can help our future healthcare providers, the clinicians, the scientists, so that they are more data informed, can be producers and consumers of that data when they leave their program.
That's amazing.
So, I mean, for us, it's kind of mundane work with employers, really. I mean, we're trying to understand what firms are expecting for literacy in this area, expectations for our law students to come out and use generative AI as a drafting tool, as a research tool. We're trying to communicate to the lawyers about what's out there for the technology, what its limits are, what its capacities are, what we think is coming. So I think those are, it is a workforce summit, right? So we're using it to connect with workforce and prepare our students for what those employers are going to need. And then we're trying to develop placements too, right? Particularly with the South Dakota legislature and other settings for those conversations about regulation that Senator Rounds was hinting at.
My next question is on here, so I'm going to throw it out to anyone. You guys have talked a lot about databases and privacy and needing a ton of data, and Senator Rounds talked about small databases talking to each other. How do we navigate that? How do companies navigate that for their employees to make sure that they're doing things in a legal manner, ethical way? How do you either teach your students to do that well, or how do you navigate that in the workplace and make sure that data is used well?
I might take this one. I think some of the key points that I wanted everyone to take away from this conversation is how important and valuable data is, but also how important it is to have a data governance structure in place. And what data governance means to me is, how do we make sure that we're truly understanding what data is that we're capturing? What are we going to use that data for, and make sure that it's not only stored, but also put in an environment when we're learning and actually letting the AI do its work, that it's in a non-biased way as well. So governance, although it's one word, it's a huge process in which we have to be sure that we engage the people that are doing the work to make sure that, one, it's a valuable tool, two, that it has the time it needs to learn, but also, is it applicable to the work that we're trying to get accomplished? I think many of our teams explain some of the workforce challenges that we have. have. How do we continue to leverage AI in all the ways possible to get rid of some of the manual work that maybe we're not going to have the workforce to do for us, but also do it in a very respectful and safe way to ensure that we're going to do our due diligence. I think in healthcare for sure, we're always going to need healthcare folks. We're always going to need hands and feet to care for the patients that need us. But how we do it has to look different. And that's where AI can be such a powerful tool to help us truly innovate and allow our people to get the joy back in their work by really taking away some of that administrative burden. But data governance is probably the key that all of us are trying to figure out to make sure that we're navigating the data in an ethical way. I think the larger databases that Senator Round talked about helps us to actually generalize some of our results and not be as biased, knowing that we have a very homogeneous area in the Midwest, and sometimes that means that we're solving problems for maybe the larger group, but really that niche population that really is taking a lot of resources. We've biased the data enough that we can't pay attention to it. I loved your example, Dr. Griffin, about really putting processes into our HR processes and some of those kinds of things. We have to make sure that it is governed in a proper way and we're all speaking the same language.
Benefits of generative AI is that it has the capacity to work with large data sets that we in our human brains don't have the capacity to do. Right? It can do the math, I say. It can do the math on this really large set of data to extrapolate meaning from that, right? But with anything that's data-based, the quality of the output is dependent on the quality of the data that it started with. So if the data that it's starting with is garbage, your output is going to be garbage, right? And so when you are thinking about that original creation of the data, we need to make sure that the data represents what we intend it to represent, right? Also thinking about it, are we collecting only the data necessary? We don't need to have data just for the sake of data. We should be collecting data that is relevant for the specified use where we're expecting to generate that output from. I also argue, because of my roots in liberal arts, I also argue that all data should come back to consent, right? Data at its core is a person. We think of data as being numbers, and on paper, yes, they are numbers. They are variables. But those data represent a person with rights, and that person, that human, we have to keep at the core of that data, at the core of the generative AI, and that human gets a say in how their data is used. And so I think consent is a really key piece of that.
I'm sure you run into that a lot, Jeremy.
That is a common discussion that we have. One of the things that I heard recently as a kind of a description of how to use artificial intelligence in kind of the workplace is to really consider whatever artificial intelligence platform that you're using as kind of a very book smart intern that may not be very street smart. That you need, it will give you a tremendous amount of information, it will look and sound fantastic, but it may not have those nuances and those things that we as people just understand, like, oh, that you cannot say that in that way. That's going to make a lot of people mad, or it just doesn't make any sense. It may look like it does, but it just really doesn't. So I think that's a good way for folks to look at the use of AI when they're using it in the workforce. Along with the question about the privacy and the level of value of the information that's put in, I think the garbage in, garbage out is exactly correct. One of the things that we focus on whenever we're working on or iterating new generative AI structures is how is the data going to be used? Can it be randomized so that it does not or cannot be traced back directly to a particular person? And is it purpose-built information? In that, are you making sure that you're not gaining more information about a person or a subject than is necessary to complete the function of what you're trying to do? And we have Again, I'm not an AI engineer, but I do get to spend time looking at the different documents and how we tell and train our engineers to look at the different things. And they have a pretty stringent set of rules that they kind of go through to make sure that it's going to pass our safety and privacy checks, that there's a process for data deletion. And so I think that's kind of incumbent upon all the folks working in AI, that you really do think long and hard about how you retain the information, how you utilize it, and how purpose-built is the information that you're collecting.
And I just feel obligated as a lawyer to give a public service announcement. Like, don't assume that the people in your organization understand this. I mean, policies in place and train the heck out of this, right? Because, you know, digital nativists who are in the workforce right now have a very different relationship to privacy and data than we do. I mean, one of the things that I never thought I would have to tell a law student is something that is privileged and confidential under the rules of professional responsibility in person is also privileged and confidential as a social media post. But the relationship is different, and so your public service announcement is, don't assume your employees understand this. Policy it thoughtfully, and then train the holy living heck out of it over and over.
Yeah, one thing we've done at LNS that I think has gone well is we put together an AI green list of tools that have been reviewed and are appropriate for our staff to use. You know, is ChatGPT okay to use for copywriting? That's a question we get all the time. So that might be something you guys could take away too, and have somebody put together an AI green list of tools that your staff is okay to use. I don't know, is that a good idea? Panelists? Yeah?
One thing I would add to that, and especially, you know, coming from a large company like ours, is that the data that you put in could become a subset of whatever that AI is then trained on. Like, we very specifically can only use particular AIs when we're putting in information, because if someone asks it to make a piece of code more efficient, well, if we put that code in to the AI and then it generates that piece of code that we put in is now a part of the subset and can be used to train somebody else's AI on drafting code. So something that's very important for you to think about is, if it is confidential information of any kind, please don't put it into an AI, because it's no longer at least confidential between you and whoever you said it was going to be confidential, because now some company and some data set has access to it.
I think Samsung got zinged by that. They uploaded, one of their programmers uploaded their code to a public AI tool, and then their competitors got it and raced ahead and beat them to whatever they were developing. I can't remember exactly what it was, but okay, this question is for everyone, so I'd like all of you to weigh in on this. Can you talk about what the future of AI might look like in your respective areas? And you know, look in your crystal balls a little bit, paint the picture of the future. If you'd like to start, President Griffiths.
I think we will continue to see the need for people who specialize in scientists who develop AI. I have two classes of users, and the class of users who are people who are going to take that AI tool on out and adapt it to their situation, their organization, using their data, right? So it's adapting and now belongs to them. So those people need to know fairly good about one of them will see this teaming going on and how to work with the AI and when to step in, when to allow it to building trust between human and machine. So I think we're going to see a lot of new roles emerge. I think we're going to see very, very high-end applications come up. Perhaps we can actually accurate weather forecasting. Well, in a space that whose biggest industry is agriculture, accurate weather forecasting is good. But it's also going to be able to do the kinds of things that Senator Wells talked about, the development of new antibiotics, the ability to develop new organisms that actually can see 3 harvests in a year, for example. The development of materials so that buildings, cement or crack in buildings won't fall down when there's an earthquake. All sorts of problems that normally would take a whole industry decades to solve and to solve very quickly. That's going to change then everything that we do as we benefit from these different kinds of developments. But hopefully people will be a little bit more mindful of who's driving our business and what purpose.
So being in the College of Arts and Sciences, I have to address this with a pretty wide breadth, right? In our college, we have programs ranging from computer science and biomedical engineering that are going to be more involved with that direct creation, through to social sciences like political science and communication studies, to our humanities like English and history, right? And so AI, specifically generative AI, is going to touch each of those disciplines across the college. So if we highlight some examples, right, if we think of that biomedical engineering, utilization of AI in the future is going to allow our future clinical scientists to be able to better develop an arm for an injured soldier who comes back from conflict somewhere in the world, right? I myself, I'm an audiologist by training, so I work with cochlear implants, right? So in my future, whoever is doing that as a clinician in the future, they will be able to incorporate AI so that they can help their patients to be able to hear those people around them and be able to communicate more easily with them, right? If we make a shift, we can then think of I'll go all the way to the other end, our humanists, right? Through the use of AI, we are going to be able to preserve languages that are near extinction that we haven't previously been able to do, right? You are going to be able to interact with ancient works that were written in a language you don't speak, but you will be able to access them and utilize them. You will be able to enter a museum and you will be able to have a conversation with a person in history and be able to ask them questions, right? That future of AI, to me, is very exciting. And when we think about AI, we have to, being in a university setting, we are thinking about producing the students for this future workforce, which is what I highlighted, but we also have to think about how we're implementing AI in our educational settings. And that is equally exciting to me. I have a high school teenager, and one of the things that I love highlighting for her and working with her on is how to use AI to create customized learning, right? If she's having difficulty understanding a concept in school, you don't go into AI and ask it to produce the answer. You go into AI and say, help me to understand this. And then you can ask that AI follow-up questions so that we can truly create educational environments, educational settings that are customized for that student to meet them where they are and to be able to bring them forward towards that knowledge that they need to have, right? My joke, I'm not as funny as some of the other panelists, but my joke personally, I'm excited for AI because I would love to get rid of the monotony of my job, right? As a human, I have a lot of capacity for creativity and unique thought. And being able to incorporate AI into my everyday activities over the rest of my career brings me a lot of excitement because hopefully that means I'll have more of my day to be able to engage in those critical, creative aspects that distinct my brain from that AI.
So I'm going to give an answer that makes the case that lawyers are technicians, epistemologists, and humanists. stand by. So first, technologists, right? I mean, lawyers are technicians. We draft things for people, we research questions for people, and if you are a small town lawyer, the power of generative AI to cut through the drudgery and cost of legal research for clients is a big deal. If you're in a big law firm setting, or if you're a big company, working through massive sets of data is just a technician aspect that the law is going to continue to get better at and utilize. So one, it's going to require the technician aspect of what we do. Two, despite all the jokes you have heard, the law is really good at assessing and resolving truth claims. And personally, as the parent of also some teens, this generation has to wrestle with epistemology in a way that ours did not. The source of information, the reliability of it, the validity of that. So I think as lawyers, one of the things I want us to do is be at the forefront of helping people in all disciplines assess truth claims, and generative AI makes that more complicated. It used to be that when you went and tried a case, you put a picture in front of a witness and said, is this an accurate picture of the location? And they said, yes, it is, no, it isn't, and you admitted it or you didn't, and now I don't know where that thing came from. Epistemology is a real thing, and that's going to be a thing for lawyers and other disciplines to wrestle with. The last thing for me that is very hopeful is lawyers are humanists. I tell students all the time that the law is the most human of disciplines. It regulates and touches on every aspect of human activity. And all of this stuff that we're talking about, from writing documents, from generating engineering plans, from generating new biologic organisms for agriculture and other things, has real positive aspects and potential and real negative ones. And I think that for us as lawyers, one of the crucial things has to be keeping regulation with the centrality and dignity of the human person and the safety of humanity at the forefront. So we're going to be technicians, we're going to be epistemologists, and hopefully we're going to be humanists in our response through the law in coming decades.
I love that. I'm, of course, on the human side of a lot of this as well. So the three things I'm most excited about and what I see in the future is the opportunity for us to personalize care for patients more effectively. I think with the number of patients that need our care, it's really difficult to personalize it in a way that all of our physicians and nurses want to personalize that care. So I think AI will help us actually accomplish that. Second, imagine, and Senator Round mentioned this, imagine us curing some of the cancer and some of these diseases that we haven't been able to get our finger on. Because it's going to continue to learn, because it's going to use the data, imagine a world without some of these cancer diagnoses, without maybe some of these other different diagnoses that we don't have an answer for. The third is I see that AI is bringing joy back to the work. I know that I have a tendency to say this often, but I think with our teams and the culture of care that all of us are drawn to, it's really important for us to leverage some of these tools to make sure that we have a happier workforce that continue to serve the amazing people in our communities.
Well, because of the interesting position that I'm in, unfortunately my crystal ball looks a little bit further than some other folks, so with the danger that the people that he trains are watching this and want to call and tell me that I'm violating my NDA, I'll just say that all of their ideas are very good. I won't go too far into things that I do think are on the horizon because I've got pretty good ideas of things that are. What I would tell you folks is that one of the great things about artificial intelligence is that it does provide not necessarily a level playing field, but it does allow you to have some very creative thoughts and some ideas that you think might really have a possibility, and you maybe have not had the resources to look into it, to have further iterations of that idea. And so you can sit with some of these AIs and ask it questions like, hey, generate a business plan that you think would work well in small town South Dakota with resources that are readily available. I mean, that's just kind of an out there prompt, but you'd be surprised at the sort of things that come up. And as you learn how to use the artificial intelligence, you'll learn how to ask better questions, how to get better responses. So you can just sit there and think and use your creativity to come up with a great new advertising plan that maybe you would not have thought of, but you're the one who thinks of the great questions to ask to get it there. So I think there's a lot of possibilities that businesses can use artificial intelligence for that we've only scratched the surface on. And it's the business community, it's the creative folks that are out there working and making a living that are really going to find some interesting ideas for it that we haven't even thought of.
So the robots aren't taking our jobs anytime soon.
No.
Is that what you're?
No.
Is that the way to wrap it up
No.
here today? Okay.
Robots can't be as funny as Neil.
Actually, my wife and kids would say robots can be entirely as funny as I can.
Any final thoughts that any of you want to share with our group here today as we wrap up related to AI in the workforce, or as it relates to recruitment of new staff and employees?
I think we have to be prepared. It's really important that I think my colleagues have mentioned how important it is that we're data literate, but also very important for us to understand in the workforce how important it is to understand the value of AI, as well as our teams are coming in. We need to listen to our workforce and understand what they need and make sure that we can leverage those tools. So it's important for us to be prepared. It's moving fast, faster than many of us can understand and be prepared for.
And as universities, one of our main roles is to be a service entity for the state of South Dakota. We have students who are looking for internship and on-the-job experiences all the time. So if you have an idea of something that you want to question about generative AI, how to utilize it in your place of business, contact us. Chances are we have a student who can help to complement that and provide you that while also getting that on-the-job experience, that internship, and we can help to make those connections for you.
Okay, well, that wraps us up today. Thank you, panelists, for sharing all your thoughts and expertise. Let's give everyone a round of applause.
I just want to thank you guys all for sharing your time, your expertise with us today. This is such an important conversation, and it's going to continue to be an important conversation, so thank you. Let's give them all a round of applause. I also want to thank all of you for staying here with us today, throughout this day. I mean, everybody has a plate and a seat at the table, so thank you. I want to thank the staff at the Sioux Falls Development Foundation for everything they have done to make this all possible. Also want to thank our technology provider, Jeremy Breck and his team. They were wonderful, wonderful today, as well as the Sioux Falls Convention Center just for hosting us. So thank you, and God bless, and go on and be safe.